guys, Cait here. I know, I go on hiatus and this is the kind of video I put out. I know, I'm still working on it. Please bear with me. But yes, I'm doing another book unhauling. It's been a bit. I've gotten more books and there are more books that I'd like to, well, donate because if any of you know me, I never throw out books because I believe that books should be shared among people, and besides, if you throw out a book, that means you're really killing trees because you're basically putting trees in the garbage, and I don't like that. I have my kind of 2 stacks. It should be really 1 stack. It's almost not that many because most of them are manga anyway. But let's get to it. So the first one I have is Katakoi Lamp. It's one of these one-off boys love manga that I thought it was just It unfortunately almost falls under the trope of like creepy, pushy, non-consent romance, and I thought we've gone to the point where we realize that that kind of pushy romantic trope is not sexy or romantic, especially in our year of our Lord 2022. Yeah, I don't really care to go into why or the story of it. It's just 2 boys that meet in a cafe. One of them works there and one of them's a regular customer, and they fall romantically in love for some reason. It was meh-ish. The second one is called Sick, and maybe I should not have gone as hard on the other book than I should with this one, because this gets really gross. Well, not really, really gross, but like, it's about 2 college students. One is nerdy, the other is this like rich boy who doesn't show up to class, and the rich boy like kind of does like these flirtatious things almost as a joke to the nerdy guy for some reason, because inner homophobia, I guess. I mean, I've read worse boys love manga than this, obviously, but if you want stuff to avoid, yeah, Sick is one of those I recommend that you should avoid due to a trope like that. Next one is I've Become an Omega today, and I'm gonna be brief with this one because I know now a lot of Omegaverse people are gonna come in and say, oh, you don't like this? What's wrong with you? Yes, it takes place in the Omegaverse, and it's very average in comparison to other Omegaverse stuff. It's not that tropey, even though it is, how do I put this? So the main character, so in this Omegaverse universe, at high school, at the end of high school, they get tested, at least all the boys do, get tested to see if they're an alpha, beta, or omega, and the main character who you see on the cover, I think he gets tested as a beta. Okay, I'm not gonna try to explain the Omegaverse to you all because I don't have the time, but basically what a beta is like they're kind of half alpha, half omega, and because of that, it's possible that they're not going to have omega tropes, at least all of them, but they have some of them, but they don't have all of them. But that's not what the main character wanted. He wanted to be the omega, so he keeps going to like this hospital doctor's place to keep getting tested to see maybe they tested wrong or something like that. Like, if you're not into the Omegaverse thing, then I don't recommend it, but if you want to try it out, it's okay. It's not the best thing on earth. It's not the most offensive thing on earth, I should say, so there's nothing for you to worry about there, but I just thought it was meh. The characters were kind of one note and boring, so that's why I'm tossing this into the donation bin. Oh, speaking of boring, Tomorrow Make Me Yours. So this is almost a slow burn type of boys love, but again, the characters are one note, paper cookie cutter, like personality wise. But I mean, I like the slow, at least it's not like offensive in a way, but if you want something like slow or just to like toss your brain out for a second, then this book is fine, but in the long run, it's not really something you want to keep on your bookshelf. So this book is called That Deep River Feeling by Jackie Ashenden. Yes, it's a paperback romance, so you could expect this to be almost like a Hallmark Christmas movie. except it's not really Christmas. The story is about a policewoman named Morgan West. She had just lost her brother. I can't remember how exactly he died. I think it was an accident. But the story literally begins at his funeral. So she's mourning the death of her brother, and at the same time she's also like afraid that her small town in Alaska, like it's a really small town in Alaska, I can't remember the name of it, but the town is gonna get bought up by a bunch of like, I think it's like an oil company or something like that, so the people would have to move out, but a lot of people are moving out of the town anyway because they want to go either to the main continent or elsewhere because the small town really doesn't have anything to offer. But this police officer woman, like, she has a real connection with this town, like her family roots are there, so she wants to not have this town bought up. But then she meets her brother's old friend. Like on the back of the book, it uses like the wrong last name. So like I'm not gonna tell you what his last name is, but his name is Ezekiel. He was her brother's old friend, and he was like, he and the brother made a promise that if anything were to happen to the brother, that Zeke would keep an eye on Morgan to make sure that she's okay. And of course, the two don't like each other because Morgan's a policewoman. She doesn't need no man to like watch her all the time, make sure that she doesn't get in trouble. But because she kind of has a temper, she does like get in trouble, especially with these like oil people who want to take over the town. So Zeke tries his best to not get Morgan into a deeper hole that she already put herself in. He also like has a dark secret that Morgan doesn't know about in regards to this oil company that keeps coming in wanting to buy off the town from the mayor or something like that. I'm not going to spoil it for you here because it actually is a major plot thing, but I thought it was okay for what it was. I thought the ending was like very like slapdashed because it has to deal with the element of like Morgan having roots because she's not married and doesn't have kids yet. Her parents are gone, her grandparents are gone, and her brother just died. So she has no other family left in this town to like keep the town going or something like that. And the ending has something to do with that. But again, it comes out of nowhere. I mean, I bought this for when I was going on vacation a couple weeks ago anyway, so I wanted something to read. And I mean, at the sale, at the, there was a sale going on at the Barnes & Noble near my workplace where they're moving to a new building, so they basically want to get rid of all their books anyway. It was cheap to buy, so I was like, why not? So, yeah, to the donation pile it goes. This next book I also got for vacation. It's The Neapolitan Sisters by Margot Candela. You know those, like, books or movies where you watch it and you don't like any of the characters whatsoever because they're so intolerable? Like, honestly, reading this book, it felt like I was watching the movie go down in my head, and this movie was like from the 2000s because it's very it's cheesy family drama. It's about three sisters who, like, as soon as they got into college, they all separated because their family's a complete and total mess. Like, one of them's obsessed of having their dream wedding, and that's like the central plot, like she's getting married. The other one went to like an Ivy League school, like she wants to be like the best like educationally out of all her family because their dad's an alcoholic, their mother's an enabler, like, so yeah. And then there's the third sister who's an artist and also a drug addict, but she's sobering up. Like, I thought I was going to like the artist sister because she seemed the least problematic, but I didn't like her either. Like, she had like no personality at all either. And as for the other two girls, they're either uptight and the one who's getting married, she's basically a bridezilla, and she's fine with being a bridezilla. Like, she sees nothing wrong with that. But like, I know there's like, the plot point is that it's not okay to be a bridezilla. Like, I did get that, but I'm sitting here like, how many pages of this book are there? Okay, so there's like 323 pages of me reading about this woman who's like in her, I think, mid to late 20s. This is her second time getting married. And she thinks it's okay to be a bridezilla because it's her day and she wants to get what she wants. You want me to read 323 pages of that? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm not gonna do that. No, sir. No, ma'am. I don't want that. But I read the whole thing anyway because I was on vacation and I have nothing else to read. But oh my god, this gave me an absolute headache. Like I said, all the characters are awful. Like, none of them really learn anything until the very, very end. But even at the very, very end, they don't seem to change much at all. I just sat here like, I was looking forward to reading this because I need some, like, adult family drama stuff in my life. I think some of it's really interesting. This is not it. Like, if you want family drama that doesn't rot your brain, this is not it. So next thing I got here is Bet on It by Jody Slaughter. I think that's how you pronounce your last name. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. So this is a romance about a woman who suffers from panic attacks, and she loves going to bingo nights as well. And then she meets the grandson of one of the people she plays bingo with, who had just came back into town because he has to care for his ailing grandmother, even though he did not want to go back because of family drama that actually gives him, like, PTSD. And these two meet, a romance blossoms, and I honestly did not know how to feel about this. I just want to make something clear. It's not like two people with certain mental conditions, or I wouldn't say mental conditions because that's inaccurate. I'm just gonna use the term things going on because I don't want to offend people by saying the wrong thing. But I'm not saying that two people with things going on in that caliber can't get together, because I'm sure in real life it does happen, and I'm sure you can make really good stories out of that. But I think it's about how it's written, because for some reason, I'm not sure if this is true, but to me this feels like, oh, they're like, this is the kind of relationship where they're gonna be pushing people away and then, like, roping them back in all the time, and that's exactly like a yo-yo effect, and that's exactly what happens in this book. And I'm not here to read about some yo-yo effect, because that's annoying, that's energy wasting, and, like, I would think I'd be offended to be with a person who, like, you can't, like, if you can't talk about, like, what's going on, like, I'm sure that if you have PTSD, like, one of the first things you tell the person is that even though you're not proud of the PTSD, but even then, you shouldn't be ashamed of it, like, it's not your fault. And, Walker makes it sound like, yes, that he caused his own PTSD, which, of course, everyone tells him, no, you did not. And obviously that is not true. That's not what I want to perpetuate. Out of all the romance novels that I've read, like, from, like, the past couple of years, like, I felt like this couple was the least deserving of being together, because they are so polar opposite that, like, I know, like, differences make pairs, but this is the one difference that it really does not work. And I'm just sitting here like, why was this book written in the first place? And I'm sure it was written in the first place because it's diversity of couples. Like, we need that, like, these days. And I'm not against it. It's just, I want a diverse couple to be interesting, which they are not. Or if they are interesting, they're interesting for the wrong reasons. Like, I would see these two more as friends than I do a romantic couple. And for a romance novel, that's really not a good thing. So, the next book I have, this is going to be on the more controversial side of things. And I actually won this book in a Goodreads giveaway, and I was really excited to read this. It's The Last White Man by Mohsin Hamid. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mohsin? Again, I am terribly sorry if I'm pronouncing people's names wrong. I am utterly terrible at that. So, for those of you who don't know, this book is about a society where white people, all of a sudden, their skin's going dark. And obviously, this book is about, like, the Black Lives Matter movement, but done in a, like, magical, realist, fantasy kind of way. White people are, or their skin is turning black. So in this like city, town, wherever this takes place. Like they're trying to like live with this, or like they're trying to like go through like what is happening and figure out why this is happening. I wanted to like this because I would think a concept like this for Black Lives Matter commentary is very interesting, and I think it's really important for it to be written about in a like magical realist kind of way for metaphor reasons. I think that's really important to hear, but I think how he wrote this, I think it put a lot more people off than it did engage with people. Because most of the time, I had no idea what was happening or why these things were happening. Like, I tried connecting the dots together, and it really didn't work. And then there was this one line, and then the scene that happened after that in particular that really rubbed me the wrong way. So, Anders, that's the main character of the book, when his skin, turned dark, he at first didn't want to show up to work that day because he didn't know how to he would explain this to his boss. So he called in sick. But after calling in sick a bunch of times, he doesn't have a choice. His skin's not turning back to white, so he has to go into work and explain to his boss what's happening. So the boss ends up being like, like as if this is a normal occurrence that's happening, even though in the book it tells you that it's not a normal occurrence. Like, this is a weird phenomenon that's happening to almost everyone everywhere. But the boss said something along the lines of, because his skin had not changed, if that were to happen to me, I'd kill myself. And the chapter ends there. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, you're not gonna build up on that? Like, there's no rebuttal to that statement? But then the worst part comes in, like, the next chapter or two, when, Anders is watching TV, watching the news about the whole thing, and he re-mentions that his boss said about the killing yourself thing. Apparently, someone had the skin change happen to him, and he did exactly what the boss said, without any explanation as of why or whatever the heck. It was just a random thing. And I feel like that's what this book is. It's like a random thing happened, and then all this random stuff happens, and some people are trying to figure out why, but you don't really get a conclusion to it. Like, something about that doesn't sit right with me. Like, it feels less like commentary and feels more about, like, oh, they're acknowledging that this is happening, and Hamid is just, like, trying to find, like, some, like, witty, like, metaphorical story to write about the Black Lives Matter movement. And, like I said, I really wanted this to work, but in the form that it is now, and I think people on Goodreads can agree with me, it does not work. I think it kind of makes it a slightly bit more racist than it was intended to be. Probably, don't get me wrong, there's probably a lot of extremist people who probably think the way that Anders' boss does, which is a real thing, but when you have something that doesn't really explain the thought process of anything, like, even, like, I don't want it spelled out for me. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just looking for, like, answers, like, in between the lines or between the context of the words that would explain why people say what they do or what's happening the way that they do. Like, not spelled out, but I would like some answers, but this left me with just more questions than answers. So I honestly would not recommend this book at all because of that. I don't feel sorry per se, because I can't be sorry for how I'm feeling, but it's just, no, this was really not a winner at all, and I don't know what else to say about that. So this next book I have, it's not the worst disappointment, because I'll get to those, like, last two books in a couple minutes, but I feel like this book, though, was kind of disappointing. I was really looking forward to reading this ever since I discovered it, and I found it in my local grocery store, so I was like, oh yeah, I'm picking this up. And that's Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. At least Ayana, I think that's how it's pronounced. Again, I'm really sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Trying to explain the summary of this book is trying to explain rocket physics. which I cannot do. Like, I think this is a fantasy, sci-fi fantasy about a country where, the poor people would, like, sell their children to work at this place called the Night Zoo, where all these, like, mythical, like, strange, dangerous animals are stored and stuff like that. And from what I'm understanding, like, some of these people have a type of magic that's connected to these animals. And, God, I can't even remember if I even I think I dropped this thing, like, an 8th or a 6th through the book, because the whole, like, build-up for the whole thing was just so confusing. Maybe this is just me being dumb, but, like, I hope it's just me being dumb, because there are people who liked this book, and then there are also people who did not like this book. I just found even, like, the first few chapters of the world building, I was trying to understand, like, oh, what's the purpose of the Night Zoo? Like, why do people have these powers? Like, it's more like you have to read all the boring stuff first, or the, like, non-interesting, or the hard stuff first, like, and then when you get to the end, it all clears up for you. Maybe it's just me and my autistic brain, but I don't have time for that. Okay, maybe I should apologize. Like, I'm sure that this book is great for some people who could really enjoy it, but it was really not for me. So I hope someone, when I donate this book, can find, like, better use for it than I can. Now we're on to, like, the Big Bang End. And I am not looking forward to explaining why I'm unhauling these. As for me, I was really looking forward to reading at least the sequel to this book. But it only made me see, like, the author of this book in a new, unpleasant light. And that, my friends, is the Shine series by Jessica Jung of former Girls' Generation fame, for those of you who are K-pop fans. I really enjoyed the first book when it came out, like, a couple years ago. Like, obviously, people knew that, like, it's about a girl who was originally from California. She goes to South Korea because she wants to be a K-pop star. And obviously, the book is gonna be influenced by Jessica's own experience. Like, she was from California herself. Or, I don't know where in California exactly, but she was from the United States. Her and her sister went to go to South Korea. They wanted to be famous. And they got scouted. I think they auditioned. And then and Jessica got into Girls' Generation. And her sister got into another girl group, I think, called FX. So this was going to be based on, like, their experiences in the industry. And this was really controversial, too, because apparently SM was complaining or trying to, like, tell her to not reveal all the dirty K-pop secrets, to which I'm like, you kicked her out of the company. The contract is invalid. Who cares what she writes? Why should you be caring? Apparently they cared a lot. So apparently, yes, this was a fictional novel, but it was kind of going to, like, reveal all the dirty things that happened behind the scenes. And yeah, it does, but it's not like stuff that K-pop fans wouldn't know about South Korea already. Like, they talked about, idols shouldn't date because of the mentality that as an idol, like, you only belong to the fans and that's it. And by the way, that mentality is really stupid. If you're a celebrity, even, like, as high as, like, Michael Jackson or Justin Bieber or Beyonce or whatever, whatnot, you're still human. You can do whatever you want as long as it's safe and doesn't harm others. So why would dating harm people? Again, it's a very stupid construct, and this book tells you how stupid of a construct it is. But unfortunately, the problem is that if a guy is caught, like, dating someone, he would get less in trouble than the girl idols would. Because I don't think I mentioned this earlier, South Korea is still, like, a sexist country in regards to, like, who gets more flack. If you're in the K-pop community and you watch, like, a lot of gossip videos and stuff like that, girl groups and female idols get a ton of flack for things that you would think male idols would get flack too, but apparently not as much. So I thought with Shine, even though it's your, like, teenager K-pop fluff, like, for the past few years, a lot of people in the industry or not they write a lot of like, oh, K-pop idol stuff because that's what teenagers are into nowadays. This is obviously a more realistic take because this is coming from the person who's still in the industry. So you're gonna have a more like realistic look, but then again, not exactly too realistic because again, this is for teenagers. This is for teenagers to like read and then throw away afterwards. But I thought Shine was a very decent like debut novel. I mean, would I read it again? Well, there's a reason why I'm donating this, so no. But I liked it for what it was. I thought the main character was a good take on a Korean American girl in this industry that's very harsh and tries to tear her down more than build her up. But then everything changed when I tried to read the sequel, Bright. Bright, according to even people fans of the first book, it's like they took everything the first book was building up and then throw it in the trash. Like, some of the original characters are not even in this book. And then the whole, like, personality of Rachel, the main character that was built up in the first book, it's like she has no personality in this book either. It's like for some reason, Jessica's starting from scratch. To which I'm like, why would you do that? It's a sequel. You're supposed to have at least, not every element from the first book, but at least some elements that remind people, oh yeah, that's who the character is. What adventures is she gonna do next? I tried getting through like the first quarter of this book. I could not because it was like I said, the personality that Rachel had before, she has none. It's like she's a corpse, and I don't know if that was done on purpose, because by this point, she's now in the girl group and she's doing girl group things. But you would think that even when you're still, now that you're famous and in the limelight, you'd still have a personality. You would think that, right? And also because I rely mostly on like reviews for this, so take my take with a grain of salt here. According to people who have tried to read this book, this is where Jessica goes from trying to inform people about what the industry is to basically throwing her dirty laundry out on the rack for everyone to see. Because apparently it was in this book where people start reading the lines of why Jessica got kicked out of Girls' Generation, and her feelings like towards the matter are very prevalent in this book in particular. While in the last book, it was sort of like, because it's fiction, people took it with a grain of salt, where while some things are true, obviously other things were made up for the fiction. No, this was kind of like she wrote a diary and she changed the names of the characters. She probably changed the name of the group because obviously now it's Girls Forever that the group is called, not Girls' Generation. But yeah, people know. And she basically changed up everything to like, except for like places, and because it still like takes place in Seoul. And she tried to turn it into a piece of fiction. I wouldn't mind that if it's cleverly done. This book is not that. I know that now Jessica's trying to move on with her life. She just competed on like a Chinese idol show, which, good for her. Like, I wish nothing but success for her, honestly. Because, in my opinion, I don't think she did anything wrong, because SM Entertainment were being a bunch of a-holes, as they usually are. And she just wants to live her own life. People should just leave her alone. But honestly, if this book really turned people off about this, like, real-life person, I can understand why. And I don't blame them. I don't want to start an argument. I'm just gonna say, honestly, if you want to read her books, Shine would be more worth it, because I think a lot of heart and soul was actually put into this, and this is just corporate marketing. This is just ugh. Like, I think she's gonna release a third book. I think that it was meant to be a trilogy. I would not read the third book either. And I mean, I'm not gonna tell you like what to do here. Like, if you want to read like the entire series, that's up to you. But for me, the second book was a complete waste of my time, even though I read like a small portion of it. Like, that's the amount of reading time I'm never gonna get back. And with that said, that's the end of the video. If you guys like what you saw and heard, hit the like button, hit the comments down below on your opinions on the books if you've read them or not. Make sure you subscribe and follow my socials down below. I'm Cher, and it's been real. Ciao!